Modern Warfare 3 was quite a year. Good and bad, there was a lot to talk about. Today in this video is going to serve as our last video here for the entirety of the Modern Warfare 3 year, gearing up for Black Ops 6 upcoming, and what's beyond. I wanted to just detail my thoughts on the year as a whole, breaking down my thoughts on everything good, everything bad. There's quite a bit of everything, like we just mentioned, but also, elephant in the room. Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing? Been a while since I used this face cam stuff, so figured why not break it out again and just have a casual conversation with you about, again, my thoughts on the year. More conversational, more informal, just talking to you about my thoughts. So drop your thoughts as we go along. What do you think of Modern Warfare 3 as a whole? Good, bad, whatever the case. Feel free to let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite, whatever the case. If you guys also enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And of course, make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all things Black Ops 6 as we gear up for the launch here and beyond. I'd love to have you in the community. For now, though, let's jump into it. So, like I said, the year as a whole was really weird, to be honest with you. Like, for the longest time, we thought it would be a year 2 of Infinity Ward's Modern Warfare 2, a massive DLC that was maybe branded as Modern Warfare 3. Like, maybe we knew that part was coming, but we thought we'd be seeing more maps, more content, and everything like that from Infinity Ward. It seemed like they just said, nah, I don't really feel like doing it. And then so Sledgehammer had to come in and just kind of Frankenstein this thing together. And the funniest part from day one to me was the fact that this was basically like officially marketed as, hey, yeah, this isn't what Infinity Ward did. Like, that was one of the big selling points, if you guys remember before launch, was that it just wasn't Infinity Ward's Modern Warfare 2, that it was a new game, changed and all that kind of stuff. And so that brought its own controversy, that brought its own excitement, depending on where you lay on the spectrum there. But it was definitely one of those things where, like, you could tell it wasn't necessarily like the full plan, I guess you could say, to have this in the cards. But we ended up getting a game with campaign, multiplayer, and zombies, albeit some strange points like we'll talk about here as we get to them. But breaking it down, we're going to take it campaign, multiplayer, and zombies, sort of chapters to this video, timestamps down below. But we're going to ramble a little bit here with this for all this. So first, to start, campaign, the single player. This campaign is an interesting one to me because I love campaigns. Like, truly, I really enjoy the single player. I really dug what they did with the Modern Warfare 2019 reboot, really dug what they did with the Modern Warfare 2 narrative, I thought, albeit I probably love that one just because I love the Sicario films and, like, that was Sicario. But I really enjoyed the cinematic high points of the COD franchise, and Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 2019 both delivered a lot of that. So early access, I was all in for the campaign. I was stoked until I wasn't. And then I was just disappointed. From both a gameplay and narrative perspective, I think this was a flop for me, personally speaking. Gameplay-wise, I get it, but it doesn't make up for it. Like, I get the game was made in 18 months. I get that Sledgehammer wasn't even supposed to be the developer on this, it seemed like. And I get you gotta put out something to get a game out there. Like, obviously, for you and me, yes, we would absolutely say, hey, just take the year off, man. Like, don't worry about it. Like, don't rush a product. But to the investors and to the suits, they're printing $1 billion. So, like, I get why they pushed one out. I don't necessarily agree with it, but the campaign is the campaign we got. And one of the things from a gameplay perspective that I genuinely did not like was the open combat missions that we saw. Developmentally, I get, again, you're on that shortened timetable. You can just churn these out. It's essentially a Spec Ops mission mixed into a campaign element. You tack on a cinematic before and after the level completes, and then bam, you got a campaign mission. But you take those open world elements that we already experienced, again, mix it with the existing game mechanics you see in Spec Ops and Warzone, and you have that level that can take either 5 minutes or 30 minutes, and it creates the illusion of the open world. And I don't think that I really would have minded them if they weren't as empty as they were, and there weren't as many of them, if that makes sense. Like, you cut the total in half, maybe I don't care as much. And it's, again, not for the lack of concept. Like, I think that Call of Duty can do open world stuff very well. You've probably heard me talk about this mission a ton, but Desperate Measures from Black Ops Cold War was such a fantastic level, I think, at least. So you have things that have done well in the past as open world. This was just a textbook way to not do it. It just seemed lazy. It seemed like it was something that was, again, just thrown out there to have campaign missions. But yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of that kind of stuff. Narratively, my general dislike of the game was just in the botched narrative. Like, I don't think that this would have been a terrible story if it was expanded upon a little more. Like, it felt like it was a snail's pace for a little bit. Everything all came to a head at the very end, and then I feel like there should have been a couple of more missions after that. That's how I see it. Like, Modern Warfare 2019, I thought was a solid reboot. Was excited to jump into Modern Warfare 2's campaign, and honestly, while I liked it again, even though, as mentioned, I think it was just basically a Sicario film, Modern Warfare 3's campaign I was still stoked for because, my god, they left off on that cliffhanger. You're finally gonna see Makarov, and I was like, oh my god, sick. We don't have to wait 3 years to end up getting this. Well, while I think it was an overall setup and an arc for continuation into a Modern Warfare 4, the ending genuinely ruined this game for me in terms of campaign. Spoiler alert here, give you a few seconds. If you haven't played it already, skip ahead to the next chapter, whatever. But by this point, I'd wager that most of us have already played the campaign. So the ending was probably the most abrupt and frustrating ending for a COD I think I've ever played. Not kidding. There's a clip somewhere of it when I was streaming the early access of it that I genuinely chased Makarov to an inaccessible door because I thought there was more. But nope, we literally ended our campaign with just Soap getting shot in the head, Makarov doing a little silly runaway. It was almost like the cartoonish, like, and then you defuse the explosives and that's the end. Like, that's the campaign? Again, I fully understand this was a shortened dev window, more so a DLC setup, I think, for Modern Warfare 4, but holy hell, that ending was a disaster. I genuinely did not believe the campaign was over. Like, I said it before, I'll say it again. I think that if you gave it like 3 to 4 missions afterwards where it builds up the actual showdown to Makarov, then I think it'd be fine. But the ending just genuinely felt like it was missing pieces to it. Like, it was 3/4 of the way through the storyline, not the whole way. Then, not to mention, I feel like the very end post-credit scene with Price and Shepard, I'm all for taking liberties and like changing from the original trilogy and stuff and creating a new mold for your character. But like killing Shepard, I feel like personally didn't fit the plot pieces at all. Like, I guess if we decide to do the whole 141 disavowed thing in Modern Warfare 4 upcoming, like, I guess that could work while you're chasing down Makarov, but I also feel like it wasn't necessary to the story, and it was kind of just thrown in there for like, oh, what's gonna happen next type of effect. But yeah, the campaign right out of the gate, like a week before the launch of the game, I was like, oh, well, that's a way to start a year. That's a lot of fun. Yeah, so campaign absolutely did not do it for me this year. And that's probably one of the things that I guess probably for a lot of people, it doesn't matter. You play a campaign once and you're done. The next part, multiplayer, that is where, again, like I said from the beginning here, it's weird that this was marketed as what Modern Warfare 2 was not. Like, that was one of the key focal points, one of the biggest draws for the entire year. And it's weird because on top of that, we basically saw the dev process in reverse as compared to prior years. I mean, in recent years, we've seen a lot of remasters, a lot of remakes, yes, but of course you had with Modern Warfare 3, all remasters, all remakes up front. You had 2 ground war maps and a war map that you could play around with that was brand new as well, but like for the majority of players, 6v6 is what you were jumping into probably. And so you had all those maps that if you played Modern Warfare 2, the original from way back in the day, these were all just, they've been beaten to death and back. Like, I appreciate that we got to see them again and experience them on new hardware and everything like that, but honestly, I was also very tired by the time Season 1 came along of just playing the same maps that I had played for a decade plus. I think beyond that, there's a lot of faults with the gameplay and the multiplayer that can be rightfully acknowledged, and we'll touch on in a second, but I also do think that there was a lot of things that, while people give this game a lot of grief, I do think there was a lot of good stuff as well, and one in particular is like an overarching topic, which we'll touch on in a second. But starting with some of the cons, just to get those out of the way, right up front at the launch of the game, I really did not like the armory system that we had at the very beginning. Right now, how we have it, totally fine. You get extra calling cards, emblems, stuff like that. You get stuff that if you've rolled over content you didn't earn from last season into the current season, you can get the new weapons and stuff like that. So that stuff is totally fine, but the armory system at launch, if you guys remember, I think it was like 12 weapons or so were inaccessible to use throughout ranking up and prestiging through the seasonal prestiges and stuff for the first couple of weeks, I think, where that obviously persisted. Those weapons were based in the armory system, but the problem with it was at the very beginning, there was no additional way to get extra armory tokens completed for the day. You do all your daily challenges, and then there was nothing else. So unless you were going for every single one, there was a very high chance that you'd be like 2 weeks into the game and still not have all of your weapons unlocked because of the way the armory system worked. Now, thankfully, they did rectify that rather quickly. I think it was like 2-3 weeks after they were just like, oh, here's a way to do even more. You can get daily challenge credits by winning or completing contracts and zombies. So that was at least rectified pretty quickly, and that was something that I definitely could get behind. But that was at launch, and one of the things that I think, again, when you look at the post-launch year of support, there's a lot of stuff good, I think, with Modern Warfare 3. So like up front, that was the big part that kind of annoyed me a little bit. Speaking on specific things like from the launch or throughout, I think that's one of the only things that I really did not like out of the Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer experience. But talking generally speaking now at this point, I really did not like that we didn't have any gunfight or ground war support. We didn't get a single ground war map post-launch, and we only had that one gunfight map that was introduced. So with those at launch, and then the gunfight mode was something that they kind of made a spectacle out of in Season 1, you kind of figured they would get more support than they actually did, but they got nothing. So that was always weird to me. Skill-based matchmaking is something that, like, we can beat a dead horse all we want. I don't really want to stay too much on that topic. You've heard my take on it plenty of times before, and it's really just, it's not worth consistently saying the same thing over and over and over again. I know I get comments here and there that are just like, well, why don't you make any videos on this kind of stuff if you don't like it? It's because, again, I've said my piece so many times. If it mattered to anybody and I had any influence, something would have been done years ago. I've been saying this since Modern Warfare 2019. So like, they don't care about my input. The people that I can talk to personally and sometimes even face to face, they've heard my piece before. It's just out of their control. It's out of my control. And so it's just one of those things. Yeah, it sucks, but like, at this point, I'm tired, man. I'm tired of saying this every time. The Modern Warfare fatigue, I think, was also something that kind of set in, especially like with Season 5 and Season 6. For me personally this year, I was playing a lot of other stuff throughout the year, absolutely, but it was one of those things that by 5 and 6, it's like, this is 2 years of Modern Warfare, and I'm kind of just ready to shake the tree a little bit, shake things up. And so I think that was one of those things that from the beginning for a lot of people as well, seeing those Modern Warfare 2 carry forward weapons and everything, it really didn't distinguish the game all that much, and that leads into the DLC discussions, which, again, however you want to feel about it, I am personally of the camp that, yeah, kind of is a DLC, but at the same time, I don't take that as personally, I guess, as other people did. Like, some people really were die on that hill of like, I will not buy this game because it's a DLC. And like, I get that, totally cool, like, fine, yeah, whatever. But at the same time, I do, especially post-launch, enjoy what they did with this DLC that I think that I got my money's worth out of it, personally speaking. Is it in my top 5 Call of Duties? Probably not, but I think that given the circumstances, it is something that could have been way worse. So that leads me now to the pros, talking the cons a little bit here, and honestly up until this point, because I didn't really like the campaign all that much, let's talk about the pros. Specifically speaking, one thing that I really appreciated that I think goes under the radar that Sledgehammer did was looping streaks. Now, this wasn't something that was there at launch. I get that. It came in like Season 3, I want to say. Might have been 2 Reloaded, might have been 3 Reloaded. I can't remember. But anyways, throughout the year of support, they added the ability for streaks to loop. That is something that I've said since Modern Warfare 2019 that I've wanted back, and we saw it only in Black Ops Cold War, but like not in the genuine format that I was hoping. They of course did that weird score streak system within Cold War where it had the ability to loop streaks, but you had a cooldown for everything of about 60 seconds, which was insanely dumb before you could even start earning extra score towards that. Didn't like that at all, but super happy that that was able to be brought back into Modern Warfare 3. I wish that it was something that was carrying over into Black Ops 6, but like, it made going on a streak, I think, so much more enjoyable, because when you were in that flow state, like, you knew you were in that flow state and nothing could stop you. If you were running a UAV and an advanced UAV, you got the advanced UAV, you had a good chance of being able to get another advanced UAV based off of that advanced UAV because you had that information with you. So otherwise, whereas in Modern Warfare 2019, Vanguard, Modern Warfare 2, up until this point in Modern Warfare 3, you kind of just had to hope that your streaks lasted if you were chasing that nuke. And that was something that I liked the streaks looping again. Aftermarket parts, I gotta say, are probably, I think, one of the more innovative, if not most innovative things that we've seen in the last 10 years for Call of Duty. Like, of course, you had all those innovations back with the golden age of COD, like introducing score streaks rather than kill streaks, introducing strike packages, introducing customizable kill streaks, introducing a pick 10 or gunsmith system like that. Like, you had all kinds of stuff that kind of shaped the mold of what Call of Duty became known as back in the day, but you really didn't have too many things that, like, I think genuinely helped the gameplay systems and gave you something to go towards up until aftermarket parts. Like, I loved what they did with that kind of stuff. Having the ability to take a weapon and functionally turn it into something entirely different was super cool to me. I really appreciated that, and I, again, wish this was something that was coming back in Black Ops 6. And in that same vein where it allows you to earn something every single week, that kind of leads me into the weekly events that they did. There were so many cool things, whether it be XP or challenge-based things or just like basically participation stuff. You could end up earning so many cool things in regards to emblems, decals, loading screens, and of course, camos. That's one thing that we'll touch on in a second, that that's a whole different end of the spectrum that I loved. But if my math is correct, I think there were only like 4 weeks in the entire year that we didn't have an event at any point. I think there was one pre-season 1. There might have been another one in season 1. Then at the reveal for Black Ops 6, I don't think there was one either leading up to the actual event or like next, I forget which one. And then now, because the season of support is over, we don't have one. So like the entirety of the year, only 4 weeks without something to do on a weekly basis. That is insane. Like, that sets the standard so high for what we've seen within Call of Duty and a live service. Like, I think this was the first live service COD game that actually did live service well. That is something that so many games, so many publishers try to do, and they fall flat big time. But this was the first time that I felt like Call of Duty was like, oh, yeah, we actually gave you a reason to come back week over week. And for that, I appreciate it. Like, that makes me feel like my playtime's worth it to the developers, to whoever's making the games entirely. Like, whether it be publisher or developer end, that makes me feel like, okay, I'm kind of valued as a customer. And to kind of stem from that, the amount of cool earnable camos this year was insane, and I loved it. Like, that's one of the things that since Modern Warfare 2019 came out, we had not had a game that really focused on camos. Like, yeah, you had your mastery camos every single year, but like the big selling point was blueprints. And every single year up until this point, the blueprints were the main focal point, but if you changed one attachment, you risked changing the entire look of the weapon. And that, to me, is just the dumbest thing ever. Like, you stress all this gun customization, you stress all this stuff about making a weapon personal and everything like that from Modern Warfare 2019 onwards, and then you make something that, okay, you finally got a build, you finally got a look of a weapon you like, and then you change one thing and it's gone. That never made sense to me. And so this year, with camos being the focus, not blueprints, that made so much sense to me, and we had so many of them. You had mastery camos for multiplayer, zombies, Modern Warfare 2 zombies camos. That was something you could do. You end up having all these events, basically always having an event camo associated with it. So again, if you take 4 weeks minus 52, 48 camos there alone. You had all kinds of Easter egg camos. You had all kinds of special camos, pre-order camos, stuff like that, that you had so many things to go and try and earn. And for that, somebody, again, that wants to keep that customization across all the weapons, across whatever I want to build out, and the ability to earn that kind of stuff, not buy it, but earn it. That's the big thing, because even blueprints were not something you could really earn in Modern Warfare 2, in Vanguard, in Cold War, in Modern Warfare 2019. You saw the majority of that stuff in the shop. So when you have stuff that actually seems worthwhile to go for in terms of camos, that is awesome when it's earnable. Now, I will say it does get a little bit messy if you take a look at what was on offer, that like if you didn't have the ability to play for a week, you kind of lost out on one of those things. Like, that, I think, does suck. The fear of missing out absolutely draws people in, but at the same time, it's a little bit punishing to players if they can't actually do it. So in that sense, it's kind of a double-edged sword, but I do appreciate just the sheer insane amount of these camos that were added in. Definitely really do appreciate that. Then the sort of overarching thing here with Modern Warfare 3 as a whole for the entirety of the year of content was just the absolute incredible post-launch 6v6 support. We can talk about all these events and everything like that. We can talk about all the aftermarket parts, but we did have the most 6v6 support ever. Like, yes, some of that does stem from map variants, but when you take a look at how many original maps, it's right on par with all the other high-performing, high-yielding DLC for multiplayer. Plus, then, though, you keep things a little bit fresh where, okay, maybe like 3 maps every single season, 1 map every couple of weeks, if you were to break it down, that like things become stale at that point. You have too many things front-loaded maybe at the start of the season and not much mid-season. That is something that these variants, even though they weren't brand new, they shook up that gameplay enough. They created a little bit of a, oh, that's a cool new feeling to that map that, again, it's not new, but it at least created something that made that dry spell not as dry. Like, I think when I look at the year as a whole in Modern Warfare 3, I think the biggest thing post-launch that I truly love is the fact that we did have so much 6v6 support in a game when the last 5 years, it has been something that seemingly was dwarfed by Warzone. I mean, obviously Warzone free to play brought in millions of new players and everything like that in its heyday. Is it still growing the game now? Who knows? But it is one of those things that it's been the main focus for that exact reason. You're just using it as a springboard to get more sales of the full game. And so, like, I get that that is the focus when it's absolutely popping off like it was in the past. But for 5 years to have something that it seemed like the multiplayer support was just less and less whenever people are paying for that product, it's nice to this year see that it was just a main priority. And I feel like that's actually where the majority of the development went into. Again, campaign is an entirely different team, yes, but like that's a one and done type of thing. But when you look at zombies, it seemed like it was all hands on deck when we take a look at multiplayer versus zombies, because as we'll touch on in a second, well, that was again another area that it faltered big time. The final thing that I will say about multiplayer that I enjoyed as a pro here is that it fixed a lot of what Infinity Ward, I think, messed up. I said it before, I'll say it again. I think this game is what Modern Warfare 2 should have been. And I think that a lot of people can probably agree to that. Whether or not you agree with the fundamental decisions of like, oh, slide canceling, or like, oh, faster paced movement, whatever the case, like, I think that if you took this as Modern Warfare 2 and we just kind of forgot that Modern Warfare 2 ever happened, we replaced Modern Warfare 2 with Modern Warfare 3's gameplay mechanics, I think the game actually would have been really solid. Like, I think that we could have had a solid Call of Duty on our hands, but it was one of those things that Infinity Ward just tried to change the wheel for absolutely no reason in such massive capacity. Like, why did we have perks that charged? Who thought that was a good idea? Like, why? So when you take stuff out like that and you just get back to a sense of normalcy and you get back to like a game that people wanted to see post Modern Warfare 2019 to begin with, and I think that that was one of the big things that made this appealing to me, that I didn't just give up this year because, oh, it's more Modern Warfare. Like, if this was the same game with the same mechanics as of last year, don't think I really would have played. Didn't care for the mechanics, didn't really care for Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer at all last year. And so to have this kind of stuff come back and be what I had hoped Modern Warfare 2 would have been from the beginning, I appreciated that. So now, zombies. Here's the pros. It's a very short list, I'll tell you that, in terms of zombie stuff. They tried something. They tried something new. I said it from the beginning. It really felt like we shouldn't have gotten zombies this year. Like, going into it, I was not expecting zombies. When we heard rumors that we'd get a year 2 of Modern Warfare 2 and extra DLC like we have right now with what eventually became Modern Warfare 3, I was never expecting that we'd end up seeing zombies in any capacity. So it's one of those things that, like, if I'm not expecting it, I don't care as much that it didn't hit the mark, if that makes sense. And again, kind of falling back on the whole topic of like they were trying to make something out of what was already there. This was zombies with DMZ. On a shortened developmental window, you just change the AI for zombies, and bada bing, bada boom, you have your Modern Warfare Zombies game mode experience. And like, it worked. It is what it is. Would it be something that I hope is replicated and we see again? Probably not. The biggest con to me out of all of this, though, was there was next to zero support. And I feel like this is kind of the result of basically no one wanting to touch it. Like I said, this was built just to have something to build out that offering of $70 where like it's worthwhile per se. Like, Treyarch had to launch the mode, but then they couldn't stay on it, obviously, because they're working on zombies for Black Ops 6. But then you had Sledgehammer, you had, I think, Beanox working on it for a little bit. That like, it just seemed like this jumbled mess of like, okay, who's actually in charge of this kind of stuff? But then I think Sledgehammer did come back where they actually made that final boss fight in Season 5 Reloaded, it was. In which case, like, that was actually like really cool that like if we could have had that same level of upkeep for zombies, I don't think that it would have been nearly that bad. But we went like 2.5 whole seasons without like a single meaningful update. And it was one of those things that, again, stuff just happened too little too late. Like, you had your stash finally expanded in Season 5 Reloaded, which was the final update of zombies. So, like, people were asking for that kind of stuff from day one, and it would have been something that was very beneficial, but it just never happened. So it was like that mode that kind of just got pushed to the finish line, and they're like, okay, we're just not going to think about that at all. In which case, you kind of had, like, maybe 2 whole modes this year. I mean, you had 3 in quantity, yeah, but in terms of support and how things were developed, you had like half a campaign and you had half a zombies. So like, put that together with multiplayer, and again, you got like 2 or 3 there. So overall feelings, the year firstly blew by. Like, this feels like it went by so fast. I don't know if anybody else feels that way. But having said this, that I think this is the game that Modern Warfare 2 should have been. I think that this elevates it up a little bit for me, where I did enjoy my experience with Modern Warfare 3. I really did. But I do think that there are plenty of flaws, plenty of things that could have been worked on, while also feeling there's still a lot of good too, that were, when you take a look at the bones and the fundamentals of what was being introduced in some capacity, like the post-launch support, the most live service COD we've ever seen post-launch, that stuff is really cool, I think. So overall rating, if I were to give this like out of 10, I'd probably say like a 6.5 maybe. It's just one of those things that, like, campaign and zombies knock it down quite a few pegs for me. I don't think that I'd ever really rate a COD game 10 out of 10. There's always stuff that can be done. I think my closest, personally speaking, is Black Ops 2, and that would probably be like a 9.5. I don't think that I'd ever say I'd give a 1 out of 10 or something like that that is that low. So, like, it's one of those things that it falls in the middle. I enjoyed the game, but it also had plenty of room for improvement, that if it would have gotten the love and support of a full development title, I think that it could have been way better. MP alone, I think, would say like is a 7.5 or 8 out of 10 for me if I'm just talking that. Again, I'd dock it for matchmaking. Frankly, I stopped grinding after I did all I wanted because, again, the matchmaking was just, it was tedious. It was something that was just grinding you down for no reason. I wasn't playing ranked, so that stuff every single year I kind of tail off as time progresses, but this year was a little quicker just because, again, the multiplayer fatigue of Modern Warfare Year 2, and then the matchmaking, and then I'd also dock it for the lack of ground war and gunfight support. But here's my thing overall in regards to Sledgehammer developing a game. I would love to see what they could do with a full 4 years of development. Sledgehammer has this history of being the scapegoat, and this dates all the way back to Advanced Warfare. Like Modern Warfare 3, this game was made in 16 months. A last-second project that they kind of got pulled off of Vanguard, and you could see because there was no post-launch support for Vanguard. They got pulled off of that to make this instead of Infinity Ward for Modern Warfare 2 Year 2. Vanguard was a last-second project done in about 2 years after it was announced that they would be no longer co-leading what would eventually be Cold War with Raven after Treyarch stepped in. Call of Duty World War 2 was a course correction, it seemed like, after every intention appeared to be the goal of Advanced Warfare 2, but given the reception of Advanced Movement after 3 years, they were tasked with going back to the roots and the boots on the ground. So you had to kind of reshape your entire plans for that year. So Sledgehammer has not had a full developmental cycle since 2014. Like, think of that, 10 years and then counting here if they get pulled onto some other project. So, like, I really hope in the future that we can see Sledgehammer get a full 4-year development cycle at some point. They have done, in my mind, the absolute best when it comes to fan service and making a game that's fun for the community. And this has been like across multiple different games. When World War II had that Division overhaul system and then finally like let go of like, we need to be a realistic World War II shooter, it was a ton of fun. Vanguard honestly put a lot of arcadey stuff into Modern Warfare 2019's sort of vision here with that, and I thought that was correcting again what Infinity Ward didn't do, things like Ninja, that being added into the game. And again, while the game itself might not have been all that great, they were at least communicative with the community. They added events and stuff that people found fun. And then with Modern Warfare 3, again, I think this, in terms of just sheer live service, was the best COD has ever seen. So for that, like, I would love to see what they would do if they get a full year. If they can have a fully fleshed out campaign, a solid multiplayer experience, and then some third mode, whether it be like a zombies mode or something like that, I think that they could make something great for a launch that is packed full of content, plus also continue to have that sort of live service approach that really I think was the saving grace of Modern Warfare 3 this year. So that is my thoughts. A lot of rambling here on the topic, but that is my Modern Warfare 3 year in review. Let me know your thoughts down below. What do you guys think here of this? Do you agree with what I've said, disagree, whatever the case? Drop your thoughts down below. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor, drop a like on it. Of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing running all things Black Ops 6 as we gear up for launch and beyond. A lot of stuff still up on deck you guys won't want to miss, so I'd love to have you in the community. For now, thanks so much for watching. Monosman Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.